Welcome everybody to the C.F.F. issue forum on the upcoming bond proposal that will be on the ballot Tuesday, February 28th. This is C.F.F.'s fourth forum focusing exclusively on ballot question proposals. And I think we've done around 15 total, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, so we're getting pretty practiced at this. Thanks again for coming. I'm Kelly Farah. I'm the secretary for C.F.F. And for those of you who are new to C.F.F., I'm just going to read our mission. The mission of Citizens for a Fair Ferndale is to foster a community that is dedicated to the fair and equal treatment of all residents and visitors, regardless of sexual orientation, race, color, religion, gender, age, height, weight, familial status, national origin, physical or mental disability. We seek to implement that mission with a number of programs. The Good Neighbor Awards, which recognizes those who embody the mission of C.F.F. in their everyday lives. In fact, we are accepting nominations for the Good Neighbor Awards now, the 2012 Good Neighbor Awards. So please visit our website, fairferndale.org, and you can see a list of our past winners. There's a really easy way to submit online or download a form. Other ways that we embody our mission is to do informational election forms such as this one. We also have a C.F.F. Youth Mosaic installed at the Kulik Center, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you've ever seen it. And we also have the honor of being the parent organization of FernCare, which started out of C.F.F. And before we get started, I want to say a few quick thank yous to our participants, Rob Bachram and Tom Gagne. Thanks so much for agreeing to be here. Aaron Reddish, our moderator. Jeff Farah, the card facilitator. George Chapp, our timekeeper. Thanks, George. Ed Burns and the Ferndale Public Library for opening up for us today on a day that they're not open, which is really great. Keith Dalton, who's filming. And you can also follow us on Facebook. Just search Fair Ferndale and like us, and you'll get updated on everything that's going on. Okay. Now, let's begin. And I'm just going to review some of the guidelines that are specific to this forum. Our complete list of forums is on our website, fairferndale.org. But C.F.F. forums are not debates. C.F.F. hosts these forums in order to educate the community so that viewers can make an informed decision. The participants will be provided the opportunity to state their own position on the bond renewal issue. Participants should refrain from commenting on the qualifications or positions of the other participant. Personal attacks are, of course, not acceptable. Each participant will be allowed to make a 3-minute opening statement. The moderator will then facilitate questions from the audience, which each participant will have 2 minutes to answer. Questions will be offered round-robin style. Questions will be submitted in writing. Questions are subject to omission at the direction of the forum committee. Here's some guidelines for the questions for the audience. Questions must be focused on issues within the purview of the bond renewal issue, not personal or irrelevant issues. Questions should be directed to both participants. Participants should not be singled out. Questions that do not conform to these guidelines may be omitted. And when a question does not meet our guidelines because it is written in such a way that it is directed at one participant and not the other, we try to revise the question so that the spirit of the question is still presented by the moderator rather than omitting it altogether. Questions may be grouped according to subject matter in order to avoid redundancy and to group related topics together. If there's not enough questions from the audience to fill the time, the moderator will then ask questions at his own discretion. Participants will be given 2 minutes at the end for closing remarks. So we're going to stop right at 2:50 to allow time for that. Just one more thing, the representatives from each side have prepared a 1-page informational piece. There's copies back on the table. They're also available on our website, fairferndale.org. And the taping of this will be available on WFRN. And it's also going to be available at Ferndale MI. So just go to YouTube and put in Ferndale MI. Okay, so let's get started. So once again, this is Rob Bachram, Citizens for Quality Schools, and Tom Gagne with the opposing point of view. So Aaron, would
Great.
you like to start?
Thank you. I'm Aaron Reddish. I'm a resident of Huntington Woods, and I do not have any kids or relatives in the Ferndale School District that I know of. So we will begin with opening remarks, which will last for 3 minutes, and then take a series of questions, and each representative will have 2 minutes to answer them. So we agreed beforehand that Rob Bachram will go first, and then Tom will go second for the introductory remarks.
Well, thank you, and thank you, citizens for Fair Ferndale, for hosting this event, this forum today, so that both of us get a chance to talk about the millage, and in my case, about the advantages of voting yes for the millage. My name is Rob Bachram, as you said before. I am the co-chair for Citizens for Quality Schools, which is a political action committee that is dedicated to educating the public, informing the public of the benefits of the ballot initiative. And of course, I would like to say right up front that I'm here tonight to ask everybody to vote yes on February 28th for the ballot initiative. And of course, you would naturally ask why. And that's because I want my 2 kids who are in the system and every district student to have the best possible education. One where they can experience cultural diversity, racial equality, social tolerance in a very safe and modern environment. And this bond, I believe, will make that possible. So what makes Ferndale Schools a hallmark educational system? Within this reason, I believe it's because it's a truly full-service educational format. Whether you have students who are going to the core K-12 schools and want a variety of different options, from open classroom, multi-age, or more traditional methods of teaching, we have that. If you're a student who is looking to develop technical skills, maybe go to LTU or go to a technical school, we have that in UHS. If you're a student who has extraordinary creative talent, we have that in CASA. We have a whole variety of educational options for these students. Really, for anyone who has a desire to learn, a desire to improve themselves, we have a school system that will facilitate that. And all this has been achieved because of this long-standing commitment. For decades, residents here have been committed to a sound educational foundation. Back in 1995, we formed a pyramid of needs, and it's been a 17-year effort to create a responsible and innovative education system. I'm proud to be a parent here. I've been involved in a variety of PTAs all the way since back when my kids were in kindergarten. I'm a trustee for FEF. I'm a citizen voting member for the Board of Education Finance Committee. And I really care about what happens here in the school system. So why should we pass this bond? Because we will allow then the city, the district, to create a new technological structure for educating our kids. We'll be doing a variety of things, all of which is available on the website. And most importantly, this will not raise your taxes. It will extend the period that you pay at the current rate, but it will not increase the amount of money that comes out of your wallet. So in a world where Prop A has forced us to go outside the district to get money, we are not alone. So other schools are doing it, but you can help by voting yes.
Thank you very much. Tom.
My name is Tom Gagne. I too would like to thank C.F.F. for putting this on. I think it's great that everyone's getting here. I think it's great that they asked Keith to record it so folks that aren't able to be with us today are able to watch it on television. This bond, or actually this forum, I'm glad it's happening, but it's really, I sometimes wonder if it isn't happening years too late. Whether or not it's not a question, I think, of whether we vote yes or no. I actually think people should vote not now, not yet. Not yet, not until the Board of Education and the administration actually has given us a plan that tells us what these buildings will be doing in 25 years, which is about how long we'll be paying for this bond. We shouldn't be doing it not yet until they actually tell us that they actually have a goal of educating Ferndale community students. I don't think they should do it until they actually have a plan that tells us what they're doing to pursue that goal. Here we are, $62 million into this pyramid plan, and we don't really know where the district is going. What we do know is that there's fewer and fewer community students that go to our Ferndale community schools. We know there's an increasing percentage of people who are out of district coming to our schools. We know that, or I believe, that the results that the Ferndale School District is providing for parents and taxpayers do not reflect our community's values in education. You can invest in all the buildings, pools and kitchens and curtains for performance in theaters that you want to, but that isn't going to increase student performance. Our purpose of our schools, in addition to all the various other things they should do, should be about performing and reflecting the values of the community. I don't think the values of our community are strictly in building infrastructure. I think the values of our community include the product of education, include the values of our community are what is the future of our students after they leave our district. What is the draw for parents that want to move, that are considering whether they should or shouldn't move into the district, or whether they should actually move out of the district. You look at these numbers, and there's a story behind these numbers, and I'll try and tell it over the next hour, that is telling us that more and more parents are choosing to leave the district to educate their students because they're interested in the future of their children. The emergency director of Detroit Public Schools stated in the Craig Foley show that he actually believes one of the reasons that he's losing students to districts like ours is because their parents are concerned about the present of their students' education. They're just worried about finding safer school districts. Their intent isn't to necessarily find a better education. Their kids aren't necessarily performing better on their tests. The question is that can their kids get through a school day safely? And I think that's an admirable thing, but I don't actually believe that the community values in Ferndale are not improving the performance and the future of our own children.
Okay. Thank you very much. We will now move to the questions where each respondent will have 2 minutes. So the first question is, and this will start with Tom, what happens if this bond does not pass?
To be honest, I think that's a poor question to ask. The question isn't what's going to happen if this bond doesn't pass, it's what's going to happen if it does pass. Will test scores improve? Will more families decide to move to Ferndale? What evidence do we have in any of our numbers or in any of the improvements in infrastructure that these investments are actually part of a plan? There is no plan. The plan is to repair district buildings. The plan is to fix a pool. The plan is to add a kitchen. Is that going to improve test scores? Is that actually going to bring new educational experiences? Is it going to lower administrative costs? No. None of that will happen. So, I mean, we can pass the bond, say yes, spend money on buildings, and if you want to ignore what the purpose of a community education should be, then by all means pass the bond. I would rather our community focus on the results of what they're investing in and start tracking them on the numbers. Start tracking the progress. Incremental progress isn't enough. We need wholesale, large-scale performance improvements focused on our community's children.
Well,
What happens if it doesn't pass? Well, we have aging schools from 60 to 80 years old. It's like owning a house. When things go wrong, you fix it. It's very clear that when you invest in your infrastructure and maximize the value of the assets, you improve test scores. It's been documented and proven. You improve property values. So yeah, there are a variety of things that happen when you do pass. If you don't pass, we're going to go backwards on educational progress. What we're doing when we pass this particular millage is we're putting together a variety of improvements. Technology, for one thing, is a big one. I think that would significantly enhance the ability of our children to learn using new internet-based educational media and technologies, new teaching methods that teachers will be taught to use in the classroom. We're talking about wireless access across the district, smart boards in every room, wall-mounted projectors. It's proven that when you have a well-maintained educational environment, kids do better. So I don't think that we can afford to go backwards by saying no to this. We need to definitely think about what is our responsibility as community citizens, as parents. What do we want to do to improve the education here in Ferndale? You need to invest in the infrastructure. You need to do things like what you said, put in kitchens and fix the pool. But you also need to do bigger things. Technology, I think, is a huge one. We're going to remove all the asbestos in the school. That's going to make it a safe and healthy learning environment. These are things that have to be done. It's not a wants list, it's a needs list. These things have to be done. You have to invest in infrastructure to improve the education for all the citizens and even for non-residents.
Okay, this one goes to Rob first. Would this bond, or how would this bond maintain or increase student performance?
Well, I just mentioned one of them, for example, is using new technologies to educate the children. I think that you can argue that, again, if you don't invest, if you don't fix the structures, if you don't maintain these schools, we're going to go backwards. So I don't think you have any choice but to consider the negative alternatives of not investing. Do we want these school systems to become degraded both physically and in terms of a comfortable environment for kids to learn? I mean, just putting in air conditioning so the kids are comfortable when they learn, that alone probably should help as well. So I think it's a fairly straightforward proposition that investing in these structures, maximizing their asset values, maximizing the value of or using the best possible techniques to educate our children will certainly have a positive effect on scores that these children, MEP scores, for example.
Tom?
You have another minute, Bob.
That's fine, I'm done.
Will you repeat the question, Aaron?
How would this bond maintain or increase student performance?
As I read the bond proposal, there isn't anything actually in there that directly addresses student performance. We could say that if we don't make this investment, that our test scores will go backwards. I'm not exactly sure how much further we can go. Oak Park is invested in schools. Hazel Park is invested in schools. Neither one of those districts has even the performance of Ferndale's, and yet Ferndale, on its own, doesn't even compete. It doesn't have half the performance that Royal Oak, Berkeley, and Berkeley have. These bonds, these old buildings, every school district has old buildings. Royal Oak in 2005 passed a $69 million bond that renovated the high school, the middle school, and built a brand new elementary school. And we're about in what we are now $62 million into our pyramid plan. And I guess we got a newer Coolidge, but we haven't improved our student test scores appreciably. Are we interested in having brand new shiny buildings? Are we interested in having, maintained properties? Or is the goal of our district to educate students? And what are we doing to educate students? I don't have a goal. We don't have objectives. We don't have test scores where the district has said by a certain date, these are the test scores we're going to have. Here's the plan we're going to pursue to attain those test scores. And yet they're going to ask district voters to extend a millage into years beyond which these buildings will be serviceable or perhaps usable in a district with declining enrollment, in a district with declining numbers of kids per house, in a district that can't compete with neighboring districts because students or because families are looking at the performance of the district and are saying that Ferndale can't deliver the performance. This bond is not about performance. It's not about educating students. As a matter of fact, I don't know what it's about because I don't have a goal from the school board or a goal from the administration or a plan to achieve that goal. So I don't know what it's for.
The next question is, what specifically will the bond spend its money on? What is the plan for the bond? And it will go to Tom first.
I believe the majority of the bond is addressed towards the high school. If you really want a detailed breakdown of what the bond is going towards, my recommendation is to visit the Ferndale School Board website and read the bond breakdown. One of the interesting things about reading that bond breakdown is that one of the primary things they're doing at the high school is they're doing asbestos abatement. When I wrote the administration and asked them, hey, in 2004 you said that part of that $15 million was going towards the asbestos abatement in the high school, they responded back to, oh yeah, that was just part of what that money was for. This money is really going to do it. And they referred me back to, curiously, the same thing that I referenced in my email to them. And they said, well, if you looked at the fact, you'd see what the fact said. Now the curious thing is that when I looked at the fact, This is the language the FAC used for the 2004 bond. Bids are being accepted, et cetera, for all labor, materials, equipment, and other services to complete asbestos abatement at Ferndale High School. That was what the high school, that was what the Board of Education, or actually I should say the administration, told me to reference. It's why I referenced my email, and we're back here again. Where are we? 2004. This would be 8 years hence, and we're after the same things. If you want to go through the two bond proposals, compare them, and see how many duplicate costs are in, I recommend you do that.
Rob?
Well, it is a pyramid of needs, and a pyramid of needs means priorities. And obviously, at that point, the priority was infrastructure changes that were higher up on the list. So the fact that we didn't get to abatement, okay, we didn't. Now we are, and I'm glad we are. It's important that we take care of it. And I think you're right. I think you go to the website, you take a look at how the breakdown is. You know, you've got over 13 million going to the high school, you've got 3 million in new technology, you've got 93% of all investments going to the K-12 core schools. This is about improving the infrastructure where your kids are going to go to school, you know, for the next 10, 12 years, right? So this is important. And as far as how the money breaks down, again, I think you're right. You go to the website and take a look at it. But most of the money goes to K-12 core schools, all but about 3%.
The next group of questions asks are specifically about how the funds are going to be spent and kind of details of it. So the first one is there a time limit by which the funds must be spent if the bond is passed?
Me first.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, the Department of Treasury says that you have to spend 85% of the bond funds within 3 years. So that is, by state law, what we are required to do when the bond passes. So 85% gets spent. The rest, I assume, would of course occur as quickly as possible, probably another 2 years out from there.
Tom?
That's absolutely correct. You have, in the first 3 years, you spent 85%. But to follow up on that, it's interesting that this bond proposal suggests that we should continue paying for another 21 years on this, but this will extend us out to 2033 at least. I heard one report it might go out to 2041. One of the things that, again, which is unfortunate that we're only 2 weeks away from this and that no one's explained to us, is what is the relationship between this bond and the school loan, the Michigan State School Loan Fund, a school loan revolving fund. We're going to spend this money, and one of the reasons we need to do it by the end of February is that in the following month, our borrowing capacity falls by half. We'd only be able to get $13 million. The reason we'll only get $13 million is because our property taxes can't afford to service the debt based on the formulas for what the $23 million bond would be. Now, according to state law right now, and proposals in front of that the governor is considering, the legislature is looking at, they might actually cap a limit on that, which would require districts to actually increase property taxes without a vote of citizens to cover service on the debt for their school bonds. The other thing that we should realize is that when we borrow money and the state of Michigan has to back it up, that money for those school bonds is coming from the school aid fund, which is the money that's going to actually educate kids, pay for staff, pay for administration, and all the things that we talk about, the $9,000 per student, or the foundation allotment. These school bonds, when they're being backed by the state, are taking down the money going towards our children. So we can pick certain infrastructure things, we can decide what kids we want to educate, but the point is that these bonds are going against that, and it's going to take way more than the time allotted in this forum, and I think in the next 2 weeks, to decide whether or not that is a rational, logical decision.
The next question is, please describe the oversight for the money that will be in place if the bond passes. So the oversight for the money that will be in place if the bond passes. And Tom, you the first.
I am afraid that I don't have a good answer for how the spending this money will, the oversight for the money we're about to spend. My best comment on that would be, I wonder what the oversight has been for the money we have spent. $62 million since 1995. What was the oversight of that money? We already know the asbestos thing didn't work. We've already heard that, well, we couldn't do it then, so now we're serious. Now we're really going to do asbestos. As though they would have told us that they weren't serious in 2004. I'm not going to buy that. What I'm really curious about is, again, it's not oversight of the money, because I think we should say not now in the first place. What's really the big question is, what is our oversight going forward? What questions are we going to ask the administration? What accountability are we going to hold them to know, hey, listen, you want to maintain buildings, you can get management companies and whatnot to maintain buildings, improve them. You can do a sinking fund to cover certain costs. What are you doing to educate Ferndale community students? What are you doing to improve their future? What is the oversight on that? What should the oversight have been over the last several years, last 17 years, someone mentioned? Those are the questions we should be asking ourselves. We can't answer those questions in the next 2 weeks. We should take the time, get the questions answered, find out what questions we should be asking in the first place, and come out on February 28th with a not now, let's talk some more, and it's not just about improving buildings, it's about educating the kids.
That's right. It is about educating the kids, and I can think of no better time to pass a millage than when our bond capacity is at its maximum amount. If we're going to fix the school systems, let's do it now before our bond capacity decreases. Obviously, it's a function of property values. Those property values are a function of greater economic forces, not anything the school did or didn't do. Right now, in terms of oversight, it's very well laid out. It's going to be the citizens that are going to have oversight over how the money is spent. You know, when you look at the bond initiative, the bond proposal to the Treasury, it's pretty clear that although there's a little wiggle room, there's not a lot of wiggle room. What you say you're going to do, you have to do. So basically, in terms of oversight, it's about managing the details of those very specific and clear-cut commitments for what they're going to improve. So I don't see where I think this argument about taking funds away from educating kids, you've got an operating budget that takes care of that. And the fact is that you can't fix your schools out of that operating budget because of Prop A. So we have to do a millage because we can't afford to do it out of our operating funds. So how else do you do it? If you have to fix your house, you take out a mortgage, you refinance it, you do what you have to do. It's the same thing here. You can't afford to strip down the education choices or options for our kids by taking that money out of the operating expenses. So I think this is the most prudent way to do it, and let's do it now before we lose that bonding capacity.
Okay, this actually goes to one of the points that you just mentioned, that is, how does Prop A affect district funding and the bond? And Rob, you have the first.
Well, I just kind of went through that. Clearly, Prop A mandates that the state fund K through 12 education. Unfortunately, because of the current administration, they've decided that these funds are best used for purposes other than education, to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of millions. And that really puts us in a bind. And unfortunately, it's not just us. School systems around this region, in the county and outside, are all going through the same thing. They're having the same problems. We're fortunate that we're actually in pretty good shape because of what we did about 8 years ago when we restructured the school system. Gary Meyer did a great job reorganizing, consolidating, and creating an operating budget that was within our means. We repurposed some of the schools to be more inclusive to other educational options. So right now we're in pretty good shape, but it doesn't mean that we don't need monies outside our operating budget to fix some very crucial structural aspects of the school district. And it does help with educating our kids. It will improve the class environment, the educational materials offered to students, the ways they teach them, the media and curriculum choices they can make with new infrastructures and technology. I mean, these are real positive changes for the school system that can come out of this millage. It's not just about curtains in the gym and fixing the plumbing in the pool. It's much more substantial than that.
Tom?
Yes, the state is. The Proposal A, which I think if people could rethink it, would love to go back to the 1990s and vote on that again after seeing the unintended consequences of what Proposal A has done. The money that is inside Proposal A that the state is supposed to spend, the state spends every dime of it. Where people might take exception to the politics in Lansing is how much extra money the state puts in addition to the school aid fund. It is incorrect to say that our school bonds do not affect the school aid fund. Yes, it doesn't come out of the foundational per pupil spend. However, when our property values fall, as they have been in districts throughout the state, a quarter of the school districts in the state are borrowing money from the school aid fund to make up for the debt payments that their property taxes can't make. When they can't make those payments, the money for those payments to the market, the people who bought those bonds, is coming from the school aid fund. All right, so true, we can't use those foundational things for building improvements, but our school bonds in down economies make that difference. The comment was made earlier about what better time to ask for a loan than just before you're about to get a pay cut. Now, I paraphrase that a little bit, but yes, we're getting $23 million now, and it's only worth $13 million next month. Why? Because we're getting a pay cut. The state knows we're getting a pay cut. Everyone knows we're getting a pay cut, apparently, except the taxpayers who are going to be asked to float this bond. We're getting a pay cut, folks. We're asking to take out a loan on a house that isn't worth the assets that we're trying to cover, and we're going to try and make those bond payments with less income than we had before. Is that the decision that taxpayers want to make? I don't think so.
The next question is, how will the bond affect how much citizens pay in property taxes? And Tom, you get the first stab.
In theory, and in best case scenario, it won't actually affect most of you. You're already paying 7 mils on your property taxes, and you will continue paying them on the current school bonds until 2023, which is 11 years hence. Many of us may not be still living in Ferndale in 11 years. Many of us may have moved out for various reasons. So the only people this is going to impact, you could say tragically or by design, are people who are living in Ferndale 11 years from now. And they will be paying for it for 10 years after that, for bond money that were for infrastructure improvements that occurred in the district 11 years before they even showed up. That's who's going to be paying for it. And they'll be paying for it for at least 10 years. Under worst case scenarios, you folks will be paying for it more because that money is being spent now, that money is being borrowed now, and if the state decides and the legislature votes to cap that limit to $1.5 billion, then what will happen is that the school district will have no choice but to raise your property taxes today. Well, I mean, not Sunday, February 12th, but this year to cover what needs to be made up. Those bonds need to be paid, and if our property taxes can't cover them, then property taxes will have to be raised to cover the debt payments. That is the worst case scenario. That's who's going to be paying for it.
Well, I think this fear-mongering about what may or may not happen at the state level it does the voters a disservice. The fact is that it's not the case now. And if you look at the submission of the bond proposal to the State Department of Treasury, the Department of Treasury actually does an analysis of the best case, worst case scenario on what happens to property values over time. So under that scenario, they look at what happens under assumptions of property values going up and property values going down. And then they look at it and they say, okay, under best and worst case scenario, is the school district capable of paying the bond back? The fact is they've gone through that analysis, they've looked at it, and they've said yes. No matter what happens under any reasonable scenario and best and worst case, the school district is in good shape to pay that bond back. I think it's unfair to speculate about what might happen at the state level. The fact is, right now, we have a need that we need to fill. And the state has said, you're good to go, borrow the funds, do what you need to do, let's move on.
Okay. The next question is, I think, one of clarification. Will these funds be used to pay teachers? Why or why not? Rob?
These funds cannot be used for operational expenses. These are funds that are strictly used for capital improvements. You can't use bond funds for expenses. It's by law. You cannot do that. So what we're doing is making capital improvements. That's what the bond funds are strictly used for, and that's clearly defined by state law.
I'm good with that.
Okay, that's good. The next one is also one of clarification. What percentage of Ferndale students or children attend Ferndale schools? Tom?
According to the Department of Education, of the almost 4,000 students we have enrolled in Ferndale schools, only 53% of them actually come from Ferndale School District residents. The other 47% come from out of district. If you look at, the other interesting number in there is that there's a transfers out number, which is basically there's 671 students that live inside our district that have chosen to go to other districts. Depending on which division you want to do, that means either 32%, nearly 1 in 3 students is going out of district, or if you want to look at 24, nearly 1 in 4. Compare that to Royal Oak, 1 in 10 students leave their district to go to other districts. You look at Berkeley, 4%. What is that? 1 out of, someone do the math out for me. It's 1 out of a much bigger number than 3 or 4. All right? Those are school districts that are actually serving their community, and it's reflected in their numbers. Oak Park, thank goodness for Oak Park, if you live in Ferndale, 44%, nearly half of their district leaves their district to go to other schools. Many of them to come to Ferndale. Many more to go to Berkeley. So we want to question, how are people voting? You might vote one way with your millage, but there's another significant percentage of the population inside of Ferndale and even in neighboring districts that have already made the decision. And it's not for new buildings, folks. It's not for new buildings. It's not for pools. It's not for football fields and in theaters. It's for education. It's for their property values. It's for the future of their kids. And the percentages come from the Department of Education. We did not make these up. And one other comment, when I asked the administration for the breakdown of these numbers, they basically did a pass and told me to go look for them elsewhere.
Well, they're easy to find. They're on the website. So I think your number's a little wrong. Actually, it's 57%, 43%. So, but I think right now you look at schools of choice kids, and it's about 13.7%, and it's been like that for a while. And if you look at the number of kids in our core K through 12 schools, 87% of them are residents. Only 13% are non-resident. I think that's a bit of a red herring. The fact is that these are all our students, whether they're non-residents or residents. They're all our students. We want to educate them all, right? And what better time to ask for a millage is when we see people moving around in schools of choice and private schools having an impact. What a great opportunity is to fix that problem by investing in the schools. So again, I think the argument is we need to invest if we want to bring the best students and concerned parents here to Ferndale to take advantage of the full service academic environment we have here. We have a lot to offer. A lot of it is just getting the word out and showing people what we have. But our population of students has been steady for years. We've been at about 4,000 students for, I don't know how many years now, but it's not like this is something new, too, as far as non-residents. I mean, in 1992, we had 4,500 non-residents, and we had 4,500 residents here in Ferndale School District attending school and being educated within this district. It's obviously a much different number now. It's about 1,000 students, and roughly 3,000 students are residents. So it's a different number. Certainly, we've lost in the total number of kids, but this is no better time than to put this money to use to modernize our school structures and modernize our educational format to take advantage of technologies.
The next question is, how do current and possible future changes proposed by the state legislature affect how the school bond should function? That's, I guess, the future of the school administration. And this would go to Rob.
Can you repeat the question?
Well, it's how do current and possible future legal changes, if the state legislature has any effect on...
I think you have to be more specific. What changes?
That's a good question. I don't know.
How can I answer the question? It's not sufficient.
Okay. That's fine. Tom, do you want to?
I think Rob is right. It's difficult to speculate on what might happen without even suggesting a specific piece of legislation or something that's being offered. And then, and again, that would be speculation. So yeah, I'm with Robert on that. Although actually, you know, if I could take my time, I think since 2000, in 2000, we had over 4,600 kids at our school system. And in 2010, we've dropped just below 4,000. So even with all the district kids, we've actually had a 15% drop in students in 10 years. And if you look at our census data, if you want to ask what's going on, the Ferndale census, just for Ferndale, has been dropping every 10 years since 1970. People aren't having the kids they used to. People aren't having as many kids as they used to. And Ferndale is attracting fewer and fewer families. And it's in the statistics. And it's in our various agendas where we're trying to attract more millennials. Well, millennials don't have a lot of kids. And the census is telling us that the ones that are here, some of them, when they have their kids, are leaving. So if you want to ask, what is the future has been being written on the wall or on the news broadcast and in Ferndale Patch and other newspapers for decades. The question is what is the school district doing to prepare for the continuing drop in students? What is it doing to right size?
Okay. And the final question that I have is, how will this bond proposal affect the community of Ferndale? So that is not just the school district, but larger, the whole community of Ferndale. And it goes to Tom first.
How infrastructure improvements affect the community of Ferndale is kind of an interesting question. A lot of folks are under the misconception that investment in school buildings actually reflects in your property values. I don't believe that. If I look at the numbers, and they're not that hard to get, property values are better reflected in student test scores. And I'm sorry to say the students in Ferndale Community Schools do not compete there. Now, they might individually compete. I'm pretty sure every one of us knows a student they can tell some wonderful anecdote about how great they did in their classes, how great they did in school, about the scholarship they got, and how they're going on to college and doing wonderful things. There isn't a school district in the state of Michigan who doesn't have stories just like that. The question is that when you are bringing your children into the school, what are the chances that they're going to have those opportunities? What are the influences of the other students going to school with them in promoting education? Do the students at those schools actually reflect the commitment to education that their parents have, that the community has? And I think if you look at the numbers, you would think that Ferndale has half the commitment to education that Royal Oak has. I don't believe it. If you look at the numbers, you would say that Ferndale has twice the commitment of education that Oak Park does. I don't think I buy that either. In either case, these numbers aren't reflecting that. And I want to know what we need to do in terms of this bond, or any bond. What commitments and investments do we want to do that reflect our community's opinion of the importance of educating our community students?
Rob?
I think by passing the bond, you reflect your commitment to educating your students. How it impacts the community. I think, again, I disagree with you. I think that when you invest in infrastructures and when you invest in education and when you invest in different educational options, you do help the community. You do improve property values. You do create a more inviting environment for kids to come here and educate themselves. So I guess we just disagree on that one. If you're a business owner, again, you're impacted by property values. So in some sense, that it has an effect for community members. It's creating an environment where parents want to bring their kids here, want to take advantage of the multiple educational options that are here. So I do think test scores are important, and I do believe that investing in the right curriculum, the right technologies will help that, will improve our chances of improving MEP scores, and I think it will improve the opportunities for parents who come here.
Okay. We'll now move on to concluding remarks, and so Rob went first for the introduction, so Tom will begin our concluding remarks, and it's 2 minutes.
Oh, Well, again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for your questions, and most of all, thank you for your interest in Ferndale schools. One of the things I think is interesting is that people want to keep repeating, and we repeat it to ourselves, so it's nothing on anyone specifically, that investment in schools actually is an investment in students. We've invested $62 million in buildings since 1995, and our grades, our performance has not increased appreciably. What are we going to do with the next $62 million? What do we expect to get out of that money? People are going to say that investment in our school buildings is going to reflect on property values. There are no numbers that support that. Student performance, district student performance reflects on property values. Student district performance reflects on people's opinions of whether to move into a district or not. Those are what the numbers tell us. We can tell ourselves all kinds of fun and warm, fuzzy stories about how, putting money into a building and into infrastructure is going to help prepare our students for the future. Air conditioning does not prepare our students for the future. It simply doesn't. Air conditioning, pool bonds, and asbestos removal isn't going to better reflect on our community's students and how they perform. I need, and I believe every taxpayer should be asking, what is the goal, what is the mission statement of Ferndale School District's administration and school board? What is the purpose of that district? Is it like some people say hey, listen, we'll educate everybody. Everyone's education is important. Or is the purpose of Ferndale School District to educate Ferndale School District students? I believe it's the latter. And yet I don't see any evidence that there is a goal or a plan to accomplish what that mission ought to be. Their mission statement on their, in the literature here says it ought to be, but I don't see any evidence of it. So vote not now. Wait till we see the evidence.
Well, I disagree. I think this is about responsibility and commitment to the students in the district and to the city, and the future of the city, and the future of the educational system in the city. I think personally that we have a responsibility to invest in the school system. As long as we're residents here, and even for non-residents, we're committed to educating everyone. Inside the district, outside the district. That's the mission. That's what they want to do, and they want to do it in the best way possible. So that's the responsibility we all hold. The district holds it. The district values that responsibility. I think we should as well. It's about commitment. For 40 years, Ferndale has consistently supported millages and been rallying. The citizens have rallied around every single millage proposal because they recognize the value of doing so. They recognize the value of supporting the school system. So I really think it's clearly very important to, and you refer to the mission, to carry out the mission that's on the website and definitely move forward, invest the money, create a new technology structure, fix the infrastructure, and get back to educating our kids in the best way possible with the broadest range of educational options and opportunities. So vote yes.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank everybody for coming today. I especially want to thank Tom Gagne and Rob Bachram for agreeing to participate in this. I know it's not very easy. I'd like to thank Aaron Reddish for being our moderator, George Tapp for being timekeeper, Jeff Fair for doing the card facilitation. And again, this should be up on WFRN this week. It should be up on YouTube/Ferndale MI on Tuesday. And you can also go to our website, Fair Ferndale. We should have some links to be able to view this. And just another quick reminder, we're putting out a call to nominations for the 2012 Good Neighbors Equal Strong Community Awards. So please go to our website. It's really easy to nominate some people. There's some past winners in this room right now. You can see who some past winners were. And thank you again for coming.
Thank you.